Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So before I hop into my first trimester recap, I wanted to insert a clip here of when my husband and I told our moms that they had a grandbaby on the way. This was 2 weeks after we discovered that we were expecting. So I had made my mom a little homemade card, and inside of that card we had written a riddle, and so she would open the card and read the riddle, and then inside the box there was a onesie and the pregnancy test that was positive. The card read, "I do not have a face. I do not have a face to see or put inside a frame. I do not have soft cheeks to kiss. I don't yet have a name. You can't yet hold my tiny hands." She was starting to figure it out. "Nor whisper in my ear. It's still too soon to sing a song or cuddle me so near. But all that will change come my due date," which is still a secret. "That's when they say I'm due. I'm your new grandson or granddaughter, and I can't wait to meet you." Now it was time to call my hubby's mom, my mother-in-law, all the way in Nigeria to tell her the news. We told her that we had something to show her, and then my husband held up the pregnancy test to see if she could read it. And as you can see, it took her a minute, but she figured it out pretty quickly and was super happy. So needless to say, both grandmas had the most priceless and cutest reactions. They were so happy. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Misha, and welcome to anyone who's brand new to my channel. I'm so excited to be filming this video today. It's been a long time coming. But as you can see by the title, today we're going to be talking about my first trimester. So a recap of everything that I've been through the past 3 months of my pregnancy. So by the time you're seeing this video, I would have already posted my pregnancy announcement video where I am telling my husband that I'm pregnant, and then also the video where we are telling our moms that we are pregnant. So if you haven't seen those videos, definitely take a look at them. I'm going to link them right up here in the cards for you guys. But without further ado, I'm going to jump right into the first trimester. So I'm going to take you guys all the way back to how I was feeling before I even took the pregnancy test. This is going back to like the beginning of March. My husband and I decided this year that we would start trying for a family, trying to get pregnant. And the beginning of March, before that, I actually purchased an ovulation kit. And you can get those on Amazon. I will leave a link in the description below if you're interested in the one that I used, but that is what I decided to use to start tracking my ovulation. Since I was testing for my ovulation and I thought I knew exactly when I ovulated, after that I was really conscious of my body and really like looking for symptoms. And any other woman who's gone through this and was trying to get pregnant and it has experienced that 2-week wait, that 2-week window after ovulation before you're supposed to get your next cycle is supposed to start, and you're waiting to see if you're gonna be pregnant or not. You can kind of imagine a lot of symptoms. So I was kind of not taking myself too seriously because I knew my mind might just be conjuring things up. And I also knew that like everyone had said to me that, you know, it's gonna take a while, it doesn't happen right away. So like don't think about it when you start the whole trying process. Like just go with the flow and like try and relax and just, you know, not be in a rush. And I was definitely of that mindset, especially because by now you guys may have also seen the video that I posted about how I left my 9-to-5 and I have started my entrepreneurship journey with self-employment and everything. And so that also happened in March. So my plan after leaving work, like I had all these plans for starting my business and everything. So my mind was really focused on that. So even though I knew I was like super excited to start this journey of like trying to conceive, I wasn't like too stressed out about it. I wasn't in a rush for it. I was praying to God that I could conceive this year and, you know, get pregnant this year. Anyways, these are the symptoms that I experienced before testing. Right after ovulation, I would say like 2 to 3 days after ovulating, I started experiencing sore breasts, so sore chest, and this is something that I normally do experience before my period is due, before my period is to start. I normally would have normal sensitivity there, but that usually happens like a few days right before my period is to start, not a couple of weeks before my period is to start. So this was really early to be having that sensation, and I noticed that, but I was still like, I didn't even really like I was under the impression that even 3 days after ovulation is even too soon to have pregnancy symptoms. And when I did Google it, like I did read that that is too soon because like implantation likely wouldn't have happened yet. That's where like the sperm and the egg have met, and now that it's implanting into the uterus, and that wouldn't have happened at 3 days. So not sure. I think like there's hormones that occur after ovulation as well that could have caused that. But anyways, that was the first sign, because those sore breasts never stopped. So I was kind of just like, let's see if it goes away. Never went away. They just got more sore and more sore as the days increased. So that was my first pregnancy symptom. They were feeling heavier and fuller and sensitive. I had lower back aches, so I noticed that as I was trying to fall asleep at night, in the few days after ovulation, my lower back was aching, and it was the type of ache that again I would get usually before my cycle or during my cycle, but I knew that I was well before my cycle was due, so that was strange for me. One thing that made me feel like I think I'm pregnant, just because of all the symptoms I had read about online, was frequent urination. So I had to pee a lot more frequently than normal, and sometimes I would just go to the washroom and be like a little bit of pee, but yeah, I was getting up out of bed to pee all the time, and that was not normal for me. And the last one that occurred right before I took the test was that I was really congested and stuffy. It was like I had allergies or I was starting to have a cold, but that was the only symptom. And actually, I'm a little bit like that right now too. I don't know if you hear it in my voice at all, but I'm a bit nasally today. And I'm not sure, again, it could be allergies because it is springtime and I do have spring allergies sometimes, but I have heard that it is a really common pregnancy symptom, which was so strange. I didn't know that in the beginning, but I think when I did have it back then, it definitely was a pregnancy symptom. And you would have heard that or seen that as well in my first video where I am testing and before I find out that I'm pregnant. One of those clips, I'm like super nasally. It's the morning, and anyways, you would have seen that if you look at that video. But yeah, so those are the few things that I experienced before I tested, and I had a deep gut feeling that I was pregnant. But then there was a part of me that was like, it's your first like your first try, and it's so soon, and like I was telling myself that I was overthinking, but obviously I was right. So now we're moving on to week 5. I had really mild symptoms in the beginning. Week 5 was pretty much all the same. I still had my energy. I wasn't nauseous or anything like that, but I would still have like sore breasts, some lower back pain, mild cramps here and there, but nothing that really lasted very long. And bloating. I was getting really bloated at this point too, like retaining water kind of. Week 6 was a little bit scary. So once I found out that I was pregnant, which I found out basically at like week 3, super early, I started experiencing quite a bit of anxiety, and that's just due to the fact that I do a lot of research all the time. I always want to look into everything and know everything. So of course online you're going to find and hear so many different stories, and I did hear and watch a lot of stories about people who have experienced early loss, so I was well aware of the potential and the possibility of something like that happening. So that was in my mind constantly, and I realized that a lot of other women go through that too in the first trimester. It's just a really sensitive time, and you really just don't know what could happen during that time. So I had a lot of those thoughts in my mind, and then week 6, I actually experienced spotting, and that spotting was really nerve-wracking because it did last for a few days, off and on. And at this point, it was too early for me to have a doctor's appointment yet. So what happened is I called my doctor to let them know that I was pregnant, and then they asked me to make the decision of whether I wanted a midwife to look after me throughout my pregnancy, or if I wanted an OBGYN. And I think I'm going to definitely do a video much later, probably at the end of my pregnancy, about my decision one versus the other. I did choose midwife, but I'm still going through it, so definitely want to wait till the end to kind of give a review on how I liked having a midwife as my practitioner. And my midwife wouldn't book me in until week 10, because I was still so early. They don't see you until 10 weeks here in Canada anyways. And so I couldn't call the midwife with the information that I was spotting. So I called my family doctor again and spoke to nurses at that office and let them know what was happening. And they weren't really reassuring. Like, they basically were just like, monitor it. Like, they explained the difference between spotting and bleeding, and spotting is fairly common, but you never really know like what it means in the first trimester. Like, it could be a variety of things. So basically they just said if it became like persistent or really heavy, of course go to the emergency room if it was really heavy. And if not, I had my first ultrasound scheduled for week 7. So I was only at week 5. So they were basically, or week 6. So since it was like a few days away, like a week away, they were just like, monitor it and we'll just wait for you to go to that ultrasound, and then they would call me back with the results. And it was basically just a waiting game. So week 6 was kind of stressful, and I would say that I was worrying a lot more than I should have, as opposed to focusing on positive thoughts and like really praying and meditating on the Word of God. I was doing a lot less of that and a lot more kind of just worrying, which wasn't really good. Week 7, all the symptoms continued, but week 7, my sleep started to become pretty patchy and disturbed. So basically I was waking up several times to go to the washroom, like almost 4 times in the night, and that was not normal for me at all. So normally I can sleep through the whole night without getting up once, or without even waking up once. So it was really disturbing for me to having to get up so many times throughout the night. I felt like really tired in the morning, like I didn't get enough sleep, and that was causing me to sleep in a lot longer. Keep in mind, at this point I had already left my job, so I was no longer working my 9 to 5, and I was supposed to be hustling and starting my business and kind of taking on some part-time work on the side, you know, to make income and just grinding. And so didn't know that I was going to get pregnant at the same time. Even though I'm so blessed and grateful to be pregnant, and I don't want to sound like I'm complaining, just kind of keeping it real with you guys and letting you know the real, like, what I went through and what I'm going through. But yeah, so at that point, I was sleeping in a lot later than I wanted to be because I was just extra exhausted. And then when I did get out of the bed, I was trying to get work done, but the fatigue was really starting to hit at this point. At this point, I was not yet nauseous, and I was kind of concerned about that. Of course, like I was still kind of feeling anxious, so I was wondering, like one of the nurses at my doctor's office had asked me if I was nauseous, and she was like, well, you should be, which is kind of odd to say because not everyone, you know, has the same symptoms. But she was like, you know, basically they kind of use that as like a, you know, when the hormone, the HCG pregnancy hormone is increasing as it is in that time, your symptoms usually increase along with that. So sometimes it's an indicator if your symptoms are really mild or non-existent, like the pregnancy might not be progressing. So I was so concerned, like about like what should I be feeling, what shouldn't I be feeling, and everything. So that was week 7. I was just tired, I was sleeping in, and I was stressed, a little bit stressed and a little bit anxious. Oh yeah, week 7, I did go for the first ultrasound, which was a little bit comforting because I was able to see the little baby, and the baby looked like a little peanut at that point, and we got a picture and everything. And so that was comforting that everything looked normal. The doctor called me back and said that everything looked normal and good. So, and I did hear the heartbeat at that point too, which was amazing. So, okay, week 8 is when the nausea kicked in. When I say the nausea kicked in, the nausea became real. Now, I am a person that I don't really ever throw up. Even if I am like sick, I won't throw up. Like even if I have an upset stomach, I would have other symptoms, but I would not be throwing up. And so it takes like a lot for that to happen. I think like the only time I can remember throwing up in recent years is like with a mild case of food poisoning that I had. But other than that, never vomit. So I don't like to. Like it's kind of traumatic for me. So I was hoping and praying that I wouldn't. And thank God, thus far in my pregnancy, I have not thrown up. And I'm so grateful because I've heard so many other women's stories and recap videos like this where they're throwing up so much to the point where they even had to go to the hospital. And I'm just so grateful that I never ever threw up. But I was nauseous every day, all day, for several weeks. Now, they call it morning sickness, and I agree with all the girls that I hear say this. I don't know who came up with that name because it's not morning sickness, it's all day sickness usually. So I would wake up in the morning, and as soon as I woke up, I didn't feel sick. I felt fine, but it was once I got out of bed and started walking around, I would start to feel nausea. And it's like the worst feeling, and it's really hard to even explain unless you have experienced it. But for me, it just felt like this sensation of like in your gut, like just an uneasy feeling in your gut, and then it would kind of just like rise up, and I usually would start to feel really hot and like it's just so uncomfortable and like disgusting. And at this same point in week 8, that is also around when my sense of smell started increasing so much. So every little smell that normally wouldn't bother me, or I wouldn't be able to smell it that much, or I even liked the smell in the past, was now grossing me out. If I smelled food coming from anywhere, like if my husband was cooking food in the kitchen, especially if he was cooking meat. Meat. I haven't liked meat recently, but especially if he was cooking meat, the smell back then in starting in week 8, I couldn't take it. I was also doing Uber Eats on the side, as you guys know. I was hustling and I was trying to start my business, so on the side I was doing Uber Eats deliveries, and that requires you to go to restaurants and pick up food and deliver it to people. And so every time I'd go to restaurants and again smelling food, like food smells, it just didn't jive with me. So I couldn't really be doing Uber Eats as much as I wanted to be doing at that time, which was a little bit stressful. So I wrote down that the fatigue that I was experiencing week 8 was Unlike any other type of fatigue that I've ever felt before, it's hard to explain it again unless you have been pregnant. It's not a fatigue that you can fight or push through. It's a fatigue that like your eyes are gonna start shutting and you're going to pass out. Like, that is how tired you get. I would be working at my desk and I would just not be able to keep my head up. Like, I'd put my head down and be out. I would be looking at my computer and my eyelids would just get heavy and close. Like, the type of fatigue is just unreal. I was getting so tired at this point. And I was starting to feel really guilty because I had so much work that I wanted to be getting done. And then also, like, my house, like the normal house chores and things that you're normally used to doing, I wasn't able to be doing to like my normal ability, and that was also making me feel very guilty as well. Even though I knew why I was experiencing what I was experiencing, it was just so difficult, like mentally and physically for me. Maybe just because of my kind of a perfectionist personality and wanting to always just be organized and in order, and I am kind of critical of myself sometimes, so I know that I was really trying to practice giving myself more grace, which was really hard at that time. Week 9, so this is like 9 to 12, so we're into the 3rd month now. My hunger spiked at this point. So week 9, I basically found that like nausea got worse whenever I was hungry. So I was kind of nauseous all the time, but it was worse when my stomach was empty or had not much in it. And I realized that I kind of always had to be eating something, which is crazy. It sounds crazy, like wouldn't you just eventually be full? Not really. Not really. Like, I would eat my major meals, and I'm lucky and thankful that I had an appetite, because I know many people, when they're nauseous, they don't have an appetite. I still maintained my appetite. I was just really picky about what I wanted to actually eat, and a major food aversion for me was meat for most of the time. But I could eat meat outside of the house. So that sounds really strange, but like cooking chicken, cooking beef at home, even fish kind of at home, I couldn't stand for a while. The look of it, the smell of it, the texture of it, even just the taste of my own chicken. Like, I would like it the way I cook it, the way I season it and everything, but I just didn't want it at all. But I could easily eat like a Kentucky Fried Chicken sandwich, no problem. I was really craving Chinese food a lot. And if there was chicken in the stir fry or something, I wouldn't mind that. Beef in the stir fry, I wouldn't mind that. I was craving Vietnamese food like pho, like the soup, the noodle soups and stuff. Oh my gosh, love that kind of like ramen type of noodly soup with vegetables in it. I was not having meat as much, but I could eat meat if it was outside of the house. Yeah, so I was basically walking around with crackers all the time, and I also was really loving fruit. I still am. So every time I was grocery shopping, I was buying grapes, watermelon, berries, pears. So like whenever I really just wanted snacks, I would just have grapes and strawberries and stuff a lot, and I still am. I'm always craving fruits, just like thirst quenching cold fruit is awesome. Week 10, everything I mentioned continued. So if you remember from the beginning, like sore breasts and all that stuff was just getting more and more more and more of all of it. The only thing that stopped, so like the spotting that I had on week 6, it only lasted for a few days before my ultrasound, and then it has stopped. Since then, I haven't had any. I had a midwife appointment. My first midwife appointment was week 10, and it was actually a phone appointment for the first one because of like the COVID rules, and the first appointment is usually only a conversation. So it was an hour-long phone conversation. My husband joined me, which was awesome, and we just spoke with her. I got to ask a bunch of questions that I had, and she went over a bunch of medical history and all that stuff in the beginning, and so that was good. I felt a lot better. My anxiety was kind of lowering a little bit at this point. These questions were getting answered, and you know, everything was progressing. But week 10, I spoke to my midwife about constipation. So I had been, and I'm sorry if that's TMI, but it's real. Again, I'm trying to be realistic. So I was extremely constipated, and I think it's just because of the prenatal, well, it's because our digestive system slows down and all of that during pregnancy. But I think my stomach is just also sensitive to the amount of iron in the prenatal vitamins that I'm taking. My midwife basically said that I make sure I increase my water intake, which I'm not good at, but I have my jug here. I try and I have this jug and I have a really big pink one that's bigger than this even. I think it's more than a liter. And I try and fill it up in the morning and carry it around with me, and I try and remember to drink it, but I'm really not, I don't like drinking plain water, honestly. So it's hard. My husband tries to remind me, but I've been doing better. I have to give myself credit. I've been doing better the past few days. I've just had water with dinners instead of juice or Canada Dry, which I usually like, so I'm proud of myself. Week 11, I would say my nausea and my fatigue at week 11 was at their peak. They were at their peak at this point. It was really bad. I had no energy or zeal to cook at all. I really was doing zero chores at home, and I felt so bad about it. My husband was really picking up the slack as much as he could with his schedule. I think that it was becoming a little bit draining on both of us, just because I was not feeling like myself, and I was really getting down on myself and complaining a lot. And then of course he was just handling the transition of me just not being able to do what I normally do, and then trying to cater to my needs and all the things. So it was kind of hard on both of us. Yeah, I wrote here in week 11 that we were ordering food a lot. So like I said, I didn't crave anything that I had in my house to cook, except for fruits and stuff that I could just eat. But in terms of proteins, I didn't want to eat anything that I cooked. So that means that I was ordering food a lot. Week 12, I would say that weeks 11 and 12 were the worst in terms of emotions, mental and physical. So I think at this point I was just really tired of feeling sick. I was starting to get pretty stressed out at this point because of how far I had fallen behind on my work and my plan, and I felt like it wasn't getting better. So at this point, yeah, I was really feeling discouraged and just kind of wanting to get past the sickness, and that everyone said it's gonna pass, and I was just really wanting to get past it. So I did notice that my symptoms were starting to reduce in week 12. So my sensitivity to smell was almost gone. My nose seemed like it was acting normal again. My nausea was still there, but not as constant. So it was really only coming on when I was hungry, and I was trying not to get hungry. So I was always eating. So I was feeling better in that respect, but the fatigue was still there week 12, and I was just doing my best to push along, but not making as much progress as I wanted to be. Week 13, that is when everything picked up. So week 13, it was honestly kind of like an automatic switch. So I was feeling a lot more energized, not back to normal, because I still had waves of fatigue, but a lot more energized, to the point where I was I could dance around the house with my husband I normally would when I'm in a good mood and stuff. And he could even tell that I was definitely feeling back to normal. I could be standing for a longer amount of time without having to sit down, because especially if I was working in the kitchen or doing dishes and stuff, earlier on I wouldn't be able to stand for very long. I would literally bring a chair over to the sink, which is crazy, but that's what I did. But week 13, I was starting to be able to stand longer. Yeah, that's basically where things started to turn around, and that led us into week 14, which is where I'm at right now. The only thing that I just remembered that I forgot to mention earlier was getting out of breath. So as I'm talking right now, as you guys may have already noticed, I could have been sounding a little bit out of breath. And I've noticed that happened, and it started happening very early, even from week 6, I think. Just if I'm talking too much, I would feel have to catch my breath, and I don't really know what the reason for that is. I forget. I know it's a common pregnancy symptom, and I know it's more common when you're heavily pregnant, but I know it happens now too. I'm not too sure the reason why though. I'll have to Google that one, but that was another symptom. Other than that, it's been great. I know that sounded basically 13 weeks of complaints, But basically I'm just telling you the real deal, like how it felt for me. First trimester was about survival, and also just based on my own season and circumstance, like what I was going through in my first trimester. I want to remember this journey, like this is a big stretching season for me, and I'm going to be doing like more content on everything, like life stuff. But like I mentioned, I made the decision to leave my job and start a business. Then I got pregnant, and I'm doing it all at the same time, and it's crazy, and it's a roller coaster, and there's a bunch of unknown, and there's a lot of just trial and error, and just going with the flow and just trusting God. But I want to bring you guys along for the journey, and I want to be able to watch this back and be like, wow, look at how far I've come, and like show my baby, like look at what mommy was capable of doing. With God and with daddy's help, my hubby's help. So yeah, like that's why I want to document all of this, and I want everything that I post on this channel to be an encouragement for somebody else, and to help somebody else feel less alone, and just encouraged and empowered to, you know, continue doing life and pushing along. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I'm going to be bringing out more pregnancy content, but I'm not intending to make the channel a complete, you know, pregnancy baby channel. However, the channel is growing, and I'm kind of testing things out, and I want to see what you guys, my audience, like to see the most. But as you know, that I mentioned in one of my previous videos that I was starting a coaching program, so you're going to be hearing content about coaching, you're going to be hearing content about like what I'm teaching on, still about my faith, still about financial wellness and freedom, and then about my life, my journey through marriage and pregnancy and motherhood and all the stuff. So I'm gonna have a mix of things, and I hope you guys can give me a thumbs up if you like the video. It really helps my channel. Definitely subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Click that subscribe button, and let me know what you think about this video. I hope to see you guys next time. Bye. Guys, I almost forgot. I wanted to give you guys a bump update, I guess. So I'm gonna stand up and show you guys my bump. I'm barely showing at this point. Remember, I mentioned that filming today I'm 14 weeks and like 5 days or something like that. So, oh, my camera's gonna die, so let me quickly show you. Kind of hard to see, but that's where I am right now. Anyways, guys,